Good evening. The April 1st, 2021 Public Safety Committee meeting is now called to order. We welcome our commissioners, our town manager, our town attorney, and welcome to anyone from the public that may be joining us via the Zoom or watching live on Facebook or YouTube. At this time, I have asked Commissioner Harris to lead us in our invocation and Commissioner Gardner to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If we may stand, please.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for the gift of life and all that you're doing for us during this time and this season. We pray, Heavenly Father, as we go forth, that you would grant us wisdom, the ability to listen, to have lively discussion. And Heavenly Father, we pray that the public will express their ideas and their concerns, and that we, in the best of wisdom that you grant us, will be diligent in our hearing. We pray this through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Place the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we'll go over the virtual meeting protocol at this time. I'll call on our town manager to review the meeting protocol for public participation as it relates to this virtual meeting.
Thank you, Chairman Wunsch. All attendees that have joined the meeting tonight have joined muted. There is a public input section on the agenda this evening. If the public wishes to address the Public Safety Committee during the public input section of the meeting, they will need to notify the town host that they wish to speak. For the public's benefit that may be joining the meeting tonight via the Zoom application, if you wish to speak, please press the raise hand button in the Zoom application once the public input period begins. If you're joining the meeting via telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand. After you have raised your hand, you will enter into a queue. Chairman Wunsch will ask the town host to recognize you to speak by calling out your name or the last 4 digits of your telephone number. You will be unmuted at this time and invited to address the Public Safety Committee. We ask you to begin your comments by clearly stating your name and address for the public record. The public is asked to keep all comments to 3 minutes so that all that wish to speak can be heard in a timely manner. Once you have finished addressing the Public Safety Committee, you will be muted for the remainder of the meeting. And Mr. Chairman, this concludes the protocol for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes. These are minutes from our last meeting, which was took place on Tuesday, March 18th.
Thursday, I believe.
I'm sorry, Thursday, March 18th at 7 p.m. at Town Hall. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. As we discussed at our last committee meeting, we wanted to begin each meeting with a restatement of the mission and purpose of our committee meeting. This serves as a good reminder of why we are here meeting and what we hope to achieve. And the mission statement that we have approved reads as follows. The Public Safety Committee's purpose for meeting at this time is to gain further understanding about how community and law enforcement relate and identify opportunities to support community policing principles and strengthen relationships. Next order of business, there are no presentations scheduled for tonight's meeting. Under new business, at this time, we will have public input. The IT director will call on individuals that have virtually raised their hand via the Zoom app or by telephone. Those wishing to address the Public Safety Committee will be unmuted one at a time. Those speaking are asked to begin by stating your name and address for the public record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes in order that all those who wish to speak may be heard in a timely manner. Once 3 minutes is expired, if a member from the public is in mid-thought or statement, A brief amount of additional time, 30 seconds, will be permitted to allow completion of that thought or statement. The Public Safety Committee is interested in hearing from the public about matters related to our mission statement and purpose for meeting at this time. So at this time, I would ask the IT director for individuals that have virtually raised their hands via the Zoom app or by telephone.
Yes, sir. We have one hand raised at this time. Elaine Okel, please unmute your mic.
And what was the last name?
I believe Okel.
Ogle, okay. Elaine Ogle. At this time, I would like to call upon Ms. Ogle to first say welcome. Thank you for joining us, and to begin speaking.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Thank you. My last name is Okal, O-K-A-L, Elaine Okal. I'm at 6233 Hampton Ridge Road, Raleigh. Thank you, commissioners, for sitting on this committee and for your participation and your willingness to hear to the public. I've listened, I participated in the last meeting and listened to the first one. This needs to be a conversation with you, with the commissioners and the public, rather than just 3 minutes at a time. Not much can be said at 3 minutes. There's lots of questions you may have. Also, this needs to be more transparent. I have some suggestions. I believe that you should have the agenda and the minutes posted on the town website. These are posted for the board meetings. Also, if the location is there, please notify us. It would also be good if you would post the mission statement, right, so that people can see it. And also, in the last meeting, the North Carolina League of Municipalities provided a presentation on their services. It would be helpful for the public to see this presentation as to what services and who is in charge of this. Again, I would like to say this needs to be a conversation with the public. If you want trust, then you have to share the concern with the citizens. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Okel, for speaking with us and sharing your ideas. Thank you very much. At this time, I would call upon any other individual that has virtually raised their hand to speak.
At this time, there are no other hands raised.
Okay, well, let's give it some time and...
Oh,
okay.
Just one.
Okay, thank you.
1 second.
Sure.
Yanvita Simmons, please unmute your mic. Javita Simmons, excuse me.
At this time, I would call upon Ms. Simmons to speak before our committee. Welcome, Ms. Simmons.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Jovita Simons.
Simons, I'm sorry.
And I reside, that's okay. And I reside at 223 Northwest Street in Fuquay-Varina. I've actually written my statements out, so I'll begin reading. First, I'd like to note my dismay that this committee has laid dormant for the past few years. This is especially alarming given the temper of this nation surrounding the George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and countless other deaths. The response nor the concerns of the town have been reflective of the temper of the times, nor have they pursued a more proactive approach at getting ahead of combating systemic racism, policing, and a genuine concern for the plight of Black and brown people in this town. The initial approach and reintroduction of this committee leans towards mitigating liability. This was clearly illustrated by having a town lawyer at the first meeting and subsequently a speaker from the League of Municipalities to further discuss mitigating liability and putting systems in place. Neither of these activities spoke to the people and/or their concerns because you were in no hurry to listen to what we had to say. You put the cart before the horse without clearly assessing the concerns of the people first. The town has postured itself in defensive mode, and this does not support alleviating the problems facing police-community relations in this town. It does not support open-mindedness as it relates to communication of the myriad of issues and concerns. This position primarily focuses on protecting yourselves and the town, not the people you are serving. These issues will not go away or be resolved in a mere 3 or 4 meetings by this committee. There must be substantive discussion, but most importantly, action taken. Public safety is not exclusive to the fire and/or police departments, albeit essential. It is a combination of discussions and remedies that speak to issues surrounding housing, justice, education, equity, and health. These are the components that speak to the overall safety of this town's citizens. Because of recent activities both nationally and locally, much of the attention has been on the police department. While I applaud the fact that under the direction and leadership of Chief Feinstock over the past 5 years, we have seen a 35% reduction in violent and property crimes, there is much more work to be done as it relates to community relations, transparency, access, and equity. There is no question that institutional racism is intrinsically embedded into policing in this country, and its personnel both consciously and subconsciously participate in the perpetuation of this toxic ideology. This comment does not serve as a formal accusation of the Fuquay police. However, the question remains, what have we done to ensure a police department free of bias, racist practices, prejudice, and diversity in its hiring practices? I would like to make the following recommendations. Mirror the efforts of the Apex Police Department by being proactive in identifying ways in which to dismantle systemic racism and cultural bias. Hire an independent party to conduct the cultural assessment. Compile a report which includes demographic information in both the police and fire paired against the most recent census data reports to measure diversity. Fund community safety initiatives that speak specifically to those directly affected by systemic racism that are designed in consultation with community residents and interested parties. Make the police department policy and procedures a public document accessible via the town. And lastly, compile a report that provides a demographic breakdown of crime reported, arrests made, detainment, and/or all of the forms of police intervention that includes but not limited to race, ethnicity, gender, and location. This information will help to identify any patterns that may support ongoing negative policing practices. It's recommended that this span at least a 3 to 5 year period. Thank you. And I appreciate you giving me the time to complete that because I know I was 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Ms. Simons. Thank you. Do we have anybody else that would like to speak to the committee at this time?
I see no hands raised.
Okay. If the committee is okay with that, I'll give another few minutes to see if anybody is attempting to sign on or wanting to sign on to speak to us, and then we can hear from them at that time. Do we have anybody that wishes to make any further comments at this time?
No, sir. There are still no hands raised.
Okay. All right. Well, then I would propose that we move into our Okay, great. Okay.
Okay. Adam Bensley, please unmute your mic.
Hello, my name is Adam Bensley. I live at 1152 Dexter Ridge Drive in Holly Springs.
Thank you, Mr. Bensley. Please proceed.
Thank you. I just want to echo the sentiment that this really does need to be a dialogue between the leaders in Fuquay and the community members, and especially the community members of color, our Black and brown community members. I've lived in this area for over 20 years, and Fuquay has been known as a racist town for over 20 years, and unfortunately today, it is still known as a racist town. The incident with Malcolm Ziegler was handled completely wrong. The response from the chief of police and from the leaders in Fuquay was also completely wrong. If you want to build trust with your community members, you need to encourage the community to think critically of the police. The police are supposed to protect and serve. And when they don't do that, it is okay for us to ask better of them. There is no profession out there that people are not held to standards, to the basic standards. The police also need to be held to those standards. I understand it's not always the most glorious job, but at the end of the day, they get their paycheck. They know what they signed up for, and they go home and they get their paycheck. So they should be held to the highest of standards. And if you want to build trust in the community, you must encourage the community to be critical of the police and tell the community members who trust the police 100% no matter what they do and ask no questions whatsoever, that it's okay for their other community members to question the police. That's where there's the breakdown in this town, is between the folks who say, Blue Lives Matter, I support the police 100%, and you're unpatriotic if you criticize the police or ask questions of their conduct. Like, that's not okay. And you will not build those bonds in the community as long as that continues. So what I would like to ask is to please make this a dialogue. Please do everything you can to reach out to the community members of color and tell the people that support the police no matter what, that it's okay to demand better of them and admit when they're wrong. Because we all know that everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes, you all make mistakes. It happens, but we need to learn from those mistakes. So that's what I'm asking is please, please, please make this a dialogue and encourage people to be critical of the police. Because at the end of the day, when they're critical of the police and the police says, you know what, we were wrong, and they make those changes, that's when the relationships strengthen. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Do we have any other hands raised?
Yes, sir. We have a couple more hands raised. Cheryl Carter Ellis, please unmute your mic.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening.
This is Cheryl Carter Ellis of 7312 Blaney Farms Lane, Willow Spring, North Carolina. I lived in Fuquay with my family, raised my children there for quite a few years. My two younger children attended middle school and high school in Fuquay-Varina. I've organized in the community, know it very well. I know Commissioners Harris and Wunsch very well. Also, so I just wanted to give you some background on who I am and by being a part of this community for quite some time. I want to drill down a little bit into Malcolm Ziegler and the trauma he experienced, because as a former Wake County Human Services case manager and educator from Wake County Public Schools, when I looked at that young man and saw the pain on his face and know the trauma that he felt in being told by that officer he was going downtown and that he was under arrest, and let's be clear, he was arrested. It was not detained as it has been reframed in the narrative that has been given by the police and members of the leadership. But even so, I want to know, what is the town going to do to repair and to help him heal? What type of reconciliation can happen between the town and the Ziegler family? Because so much has been made around protecting the town, from bringing the attorney, from bringing the League of Municipal, the department that trained the last time. It has been so much, as Jovita said, you've been on the defensive. This is a 14-year-old child whose trust in police has been broken. His siblings no longer believe in the police department. I believe it is incumbent on the leaders of this town, on the chief and the mayor, to make amends. And I'm not talking monetary. Nobody's talking about a lawsuit. But a child's heart was broken. Their trust was broken. My heart breaks for him and his mother. I am a mother of 2 Black Indigenous sons. And when I hear Ty say that Malcolm's friend said if it had been them, they would have run. Well, we know if he had run, he would be in the ground today. He would not be alive. We got to do better. And I'm calling on the 3 of you and the rest of the leadership to reach out, because nobody has reached out to the Ziegler family except to blame them and to shame them and to tell them to be quiet. And that is not okay. And I've had a long day today. It's been really emotional, and I'm emotional right now. And I'm going to step back and thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone else that wishes to speak to our committee?
Yes, sir. Linda Pilgreen, please unmute your mic.
Hi, this is Linda Pilgreen. I am at 11904 Mile Pinus Lane in Willow Spring, North Carolina.
Good evening.
My family is. Say again?
I was just wishing you a good evening.
Oh, thank you. And I see the clock isn't running. I don't know if that matters. But we live very close to Fuquay, and my family, my sons have gone to school there. And so what happens in Fuquay happens to us too. The thing that surprised me was to hear that you haven't met in a year, I believe, as somebody said. I don't know the exact days, but I'm wondering why that would be. I understand that COVID at the beginning, but I mean, we've been having school online for months and meetings online for months. And I'm just wondering if there was a reason. Or what that reason would be. Am I supposed to do something now?
Now, this is just an opportunity for you to share anything that you would like to share to us and for us to listen.
Oh, I see. I see. I got you. I understand. Okay. Because obviously a couple of people have spoken about the young man who was falsely arrested, quote unquote. And I would think that, and again, with the George Floyd incidents and so many police incidents, I would think that you guys would be meeting more instead of less. And perhaps it's because you weren't sure what to do, which I understand also. But I agree with the people who have said that a discussion is different than you're just listening and then our listening. And I understand too, the discussion can sometimes get out of hand or unruly, but I think in the right circumstances with some kind of a format, I think it would be a good idea. So those are all my comments.
And thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone else that wishes to address us?
Yes, sir. Emmanuel Holland, please unmute your mic.
Hi, my name is Emmanuel Holland, resident of Fuquay-Varina. Address is 209 Bird Creek Drive. I am.
Good evening.
I just thought I would hop on tonight and just express my concern that there's a certain level of trust that has been broken within the Fuquay-Varina community. From what I understand, that there's been an incident, and someone in the town of myself, I have a reputation of building bridges and attempting to break down barriers between law enforcement and the citizens. It pains me to see that there's a level of trust that has been broken. And I'm hoping at some point that we could come together as a community and have some discussions that would allow our Black and brown citizens to feel more comfortable. Because of, my major concern, of course, is always been dedicated to young men, making sure that they feel safe and being able to express their concerns, not to just law enforcement, but to leaders within the community before something bad happens. And so I would like for us to, as a community, work towards building or repairing the trust that has been broken, in specific based upon what has happened to Malcolm Ziegler. My heart goes out to him as a young man. And I know it's been stated, prior to now, but my concern is his mental health and his well-being. And I applaud his parents. I'm pretty sure that they are speaking with him and trying to encourage him. And they've probably, and I know for a fact, they've probably built or established a community for him. But more importantly, outside of that family, what are we doing as a community to try to bring healing to him? I give my time back.
Thank you very much for your comments. Also, who do we have next?
Yes, sir. We have LaRonda Scott. Please unmute your mic.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
I suppose I'm coming to this like some of the others have as a mom. And when I heard of this incident, that was the first thing that came to my mind is what would I as a mom think about having my child experience this? And in talking to my daughter, and when she found out about it, my daughter is 14 years old and she knows Malcolm personally. The first thing she thought of is, what? How could this happen? He never does anything. He's a cool guy. He's a good kid. And I suppose that's a sentiment that a lot of people in the community come to the table with. I also come with a long history of working in nonprofit and working alongside police officers, coming to have a personal relationship with them and having much respect for those that do their job and do their job well and make community policing a big part of who they are and how they do their work. And I think it's important for our leadership to not see us questioning and asking for more and asking for policies to be put in place and asking for transparency as an attack, but a way for us to be better, for us to do better, and for us to serve our citizens better, no matter their age, no matter their ethnicity. I've had conversations with police officers that they may not publicly have these conversations, but we've had dialogue with each other about how things are mishandled, how things need to be done better. So I think it will go a long way when it comes to trust if we not go on the defense, we not allow others to attack families that are hurting, children that are hurting, but instead take a moment to reevaluate what has taken place and how we can be proactive about it. What do we need to be? What do we need to put in place? What type of people do we need to be? What do we need to ensure never happens, using other incidences as an example to be proactive, versus coming to a place that we are right now, to where we have a child that's been put in the back of a car that has that is now dealing with the mental anguish of what he's experienced, but yet things were handled by leadership, by our officers, very wrong. And even on their, what bothered me is that even on their social media page, the family was allowed to be attacked. So there are a lot of things that need to be reevaluated, a lot of things that don't need to be taken into consideration, but they need to be changed. And if nothing other than a personal call or reaching out personally and privately, I think that is owed to the family versus harsh words and blame, but to show them some respect and to ask for their forgiveness and move forward with real change.
Thank you very much for your comments. Who do we have next?
Will Wingfield, please unmute your mic.
Good evening. Will Wingfield, 7325 Messenger Drive, Willow Spring, North Carolina. How are you all doing this evening?
Good evening.
Commissioners, I hope you're doing well. Adam, you as well. A couple things, I want to echo the sentiments of many of the previous callers, but one of the first things I want to start out with is that in terms of repairing relationships or building bridges within the community, this committee in and of itself misses the mark. You guys, I guess, reestablished a committee that was initially formed 25 years ago that never formally met and established a mission statement. This is a committee of 3 people who are all elected officials. You haven't engaged the public at all until the 3rd meeting of this committee. So if you actually are serious about going forward and building bridges, you need to have dialogue, as everybody else has already mentioned. And that means we need to have more than just 3 minutes to speak, and we need some answers to our questions, not just a committee meeting or whatever this is where you sit there and listen to us and then move along. There's no dialogue or engagement here. So that being said, speaking more specifically about the incident the others have mentioned regarding Malcolm Ziegler, one of the things that I'm very concerned about that hasn't really been focused on at all is what happened with the stolen property after the incident. From my understanding, the stolen property in question that caused the whole incident to take place was left at the scene and then was retrieved by the original property owners themselves from the Ziegler residence. There's nowhere, any policy or procedure that anybody's going to be able to hide behind and say that that's how that should have gone down, if that's actually how it happened. I want to know if that's how it happened, why the property was not taken possession of by the police department, turned over to the investigating department in Harnett County that's supposed to be conducting an investigation on who actually stole the bike. And more importantly, why the people were allowed to go to the Ziegler residence at all, potentially endangering not just their lives, but the Zieglers as well. Frankly, I expect more of my law enforcement agencies than that. Had that been my property that was stolen and you'd found it, I'm not going to get it myself. That's your job. That's what we pay the police to do. You retrieve it. I'll come pick it up from the police department. So I'd really like to know if that's how that went down and what the excuse is for that. Actually, there is no excuse. I'd like to know what we're going to do to ensure that that doesn't ever happen again. And I'd like to know when we're going to hear an apology about it. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other speakers?
Yes, sir. Will Kinsler, please unmute your mic.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Will
Good evening.
Kinsler. I'm at 84. Thank you, you too. I'm at 8400 Sarazen Place in Fuquay. I've lived here about 10 years. I want to echo some of the, thoughts and experiences just in general about what it's like to live in Fuquay. I think that like many places in America, we have similar problems when it comes to racism and, whether it be institutional or cultural. And I recognize that the challenge of addressing that does not rely only with the group of folks that I'm talking to here, you guys, but that's a big issue for our whole community. Like we all, play a role in that. And so I'm encouraged to hear some names of folks call in tonight that I know, are working very hard to do their part to make sure that we can make Fuquay a more inclusive place. But I do think that the town has a responsibility in terms of leadership of moving those kinds of conversations forward if we want to have a place that is a more inclusive community for people to live. And so with that in mind, I also want to talk a little bit about the situation involving Malcolm Ziegler. So like some of the other folks here, I'm disappointed with the response. I think there's a couple of things. I think there's definitely a policy and process side to this that's important. And I know that, I've read some of the minutes from earlier meetings from this group, and I know that that is some of what has been discussed. And so I see that those things are being talked about, but there's also a part of this that is more of like a human process, right? And so, when we get messages on town Facebook page that use language like, the town is, we're ready to move forward. I think those kind of, statements and walls of text explaining situations feel really hollow. And I think those words move forward felt a lot more to people like move on or maybe even be quiet. And I think the town has to be thoughtful about the language that's used when talking with people in these situations, because when you use that sort of language, the people that, are in this town that need help getting on board with making this an inclusive community, those people hear that language and they're ready to jump on and say that everything is fine. And those are people that are not interested in working or to correct or fix these challenges. They're happy with how things are. And so I don't think that sort of language helps. I also wanted to echo some of the sentiments around this needing to be a dialogue. So I was fortunate to find out that this meeting is taking place mainly because there's other people, that have called in that are people that I know that we talk about some of these issues, but I also don't find, having 3 minutes to just tell you what I think be the best way to move the conversation forward. So while I'm happy to share those thoughts and I'm appreciative that you guys are here to listen, I also think that this starts, with a dialogue, and it's got to be a back and forth situation, and it's got to be, there's got to be a tone and through line of humility and understanding and compassion, because what we're trying to get here is a different outcome, right? So the outcome that we have right now is not good. So separate from the process or whatever it is that we're doing, we still have people here that don't feel good now because of this, about the interactions with police. And we're thinking about young people who are so impressionable when it comes to this. And this kind of stuff is shaping how they feel about interactions with the police in the community that they live in. I feel like we've got to look at this outcome, if we're honest with ourselves, and say, this is not good enough. We can do better. I think it starts with a real dialogue. I hope that there's more opportunities to have conversation that's more, I know this is just sort of one way and you guys are listening, and I like that, but I'm really hoping that we can have more dialogue in order to keep moving this thing forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Whom do we have next?
There are no other hands raised. Just got one.
Okay.
Pop up. Cassandra Flowers, please unmute your mic.
Good evening. My name is Cassandra Flowers. I live at 3208 Meridian Market Drive, Fuquay-Varina. And I've been listening in, and I just wanted to speak to say that I echo the sentiments of many of my peers who have spoke tonight about transparency, about making sure that we have a voice that are heard. And when I say we, I'm talking about the residents of Fuquay-Varina, specifically African American and people of color and indigenous people. We sat on the last two calls and listened in at the last two public safety meetings where we listened for hours while we talked about how the meetings would be held, how we would speak, without really hearing from the public. In order to truly repair the damage that has been done, or to address the fears and concerns that residents have, there has to be an opportunity to truly have a dialogue. We cannot just simply speak and listen and speak and listen, because that gets us nowhere. I also do not want the leadership to think, because there are not many people speaking, that is not a concern in this community, that people that feel marginalized feel like they are not heard. They're simply not speaking because they're exhausted and they feel like they don't matter. So while I know we've talked much about what law enforcement has to do, I also challenge what our leadership has to do. I have been a part of the community that has been a part of the barbershop rap sessions. I have attended the Police Citizens Academy, and I've also been involved in marches and protests that say, we matter, we have a voice, and we want to be heard. And so I'm asking leadership today to really take this seriously and understand that there needs to be a seat at the table for citizens to actually engage in conversation about how we can move forward. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to personally hearing from each of you about how you think we can move forward, not simply merely by having presentations, but having true conversation and dialogue. I will ask for a cultural assessment to be done as well, as far as data also being provided. We also would like to discuss the budget for the public safety and how the funds are being used. So we ask you again for transparency and true engagement. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anybody else that would wish to speak with us?
No, sir. No hands raised. We just got one more pop up.
Okay.
Ty Ziegler, please unmute your mic.
Good afternoon. My name is Ty Ziegler, and I am at 847 Red Oak Tree Drive. And I was able to finally join the meeting because of being with my son at a football game. But I wanted to share my concerns and what has happened with our family, the response of the town, and how we do need to move forward. On January the 30th, my son was arrested, put in the back of a police car, all while he saw his white friend, Heard, let out of handcuffs and able to go inside of our home. The officer made my son open his mouth, searched him, but for some apparent reason, the white child, he was never searched. He was deemed safe. I don't know if any of you have ever had to have conversations with your children as to how one child can be treated one way and another child can be treated another way. I don't know if you've had to listen to your son say, "Mom, there is nothing else that I could do." I don't know that any of you have ever had to listen or watch your child on a body cam being searched. The 1095, meaning suspect in custody. I don't know if any of you have had to be humiliated to the public in order to get just to work to bring change. See, while you guys, many of you guys are sitting in your offices, I've been one of those people, those activists out there trying to get Black and brown people to come together with Caucasians in this community, trying to work to bring change, trying to unite people. But all of that work was undone on January the 30th with my son. My two little kids, their hearts crushed, telling me that they can't trust the police anymore because of what they saw on that day. My son was put in handcuffs before an investigation was done. My husband was publicly humiliated. The Fuquay Police Department did not even tell the people that my child was a victim to. Then my husband was told, if you want something, earn it. Well, I don't know how you think that would feel to a man that had served 20 years in the United States Navy to protect and serve our country, but the same ones that he worked to protect did not protect him that day. Because see, had he spoke out, he would have then been deemed the angry Black man. Things have to change. And let's not forget, Jason and Blake, how you guys decided to make sure that you gave so many accolades to the police department. I have never said that I do not like police. I have never said that the work that Chief Laura has not done, that I have worked with Chief Laura on, was not good. But what I am saying, it's not enough. The trust has been broken. And it is up to you guys. It is up to you to want to repair that trust. It's up to you to want to hear people, to listen, and not just give accolades, because there are no perfect people in this world. There are no perfect people in this leadership. But in order for things to change, we don't just give accolades, but we look at the facts. We look at what happened and we ask ourselves, what can we do better? Obviously, the police department knew that there was something that could have been done better, because at 26 minutes and 33 seconds, the officers realized they did not handle this right. So I'm saying there has to come a point where there is dialogue, where there is conversation, where we're not just trying to defend, but we are trying to fix what is broken. My son, his friends, the ones that said that they would run, that should concern Fuquay-Varina, the leadership. That should concern you. The trust that has been broken with Black and brown people, that should concern you. And I feel like the moment that you can put your egos aside, when you can listen, when you can examine things and learn to do the right thing and not what is politically correct, is the moment that we can heal this community. And it needs to begin now. Not tomorrow, but now. This is not the time to be politically correct. This is a time that bridges need to be built and work needs to be done. And it cannot be done when all the people sitting at the table are white. You have to listen and you have to gain understanding in order to bring the change that is needed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone else that wishes to speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Deb Goldman, please unmute your mic.
Hello, I'm Deborah Goldman. I live at 261 Santee Circle in Fuquay-Varina. I don't know whether you recognize my name or not, but I served on the Wake County Board of Education for several years. And I'm used to sitting in your seat We would sit there for many, many hours and listen to public comment, mostly during the years of a lot of busing and a lot of angry parents and a lot of school transfers and what have you. And I'll just self-describe. I have blonde hair and blue eyes and very light skin. And if I could word for word repeat what the lady before me said so eloquently, I would do it. She gave me goosebumps. She made me cry. I moved here last summer to Fuquay. I had left Wake County for several years, mostly because I was, quite frankly, tired, exhausted from the hostility and the division in Wake County. After serving on the school board, I was exhausted. And I left and I moved up to the foothills. And when I decided to come back, I really missed my family lived in Wake County, so I wanted to come back. So I chose a sleepy little town called Fuquay-Varina. And after living here such a short time, to have what happened here to such a young man hit the spotlight, and watching all of this unfold is heartbreaking. And to watch the trust of people, and whether you are Black or brown skinned or light skinned like me, it breaks your trust. It's frightening. It's heartbreaking. It brings back thoughts. My family, my heritage is all Jewish. There's plenty of persecution and loss of trust in that background, let me tell you. And what you don't need is loss of trust. What we do need is respect for everybody. We need to be looking out for each other, and we need to be raising up our young people to know that they are also respected. Not that they need to just respect everyone, but that they are also respected and trusted, especially when they deserve that trust. And ma'am, who spoke before me, my heart goes out to you and your family. And again, I wish that I could completely repeat everything that she said. And if you have the opportunity to go back and listen again through a recording, I beseech you to please go back and do that. And I know it's very hard to sit in your seat and listen to all of us speak. And I don't know what you're all looking down and doing. I pray you're not looking at your phones or something else. But I really do hope you're taking notes and really listening to what everybody has to say, because this community is hurting and people are hurting. And the only reason that people are here and saying what we're saying is because we're in pain and people are begging for help and reaching out like a cry in the darkness for help and to love each other and care for each other and help each other. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Who do we have next?
I see no other hands raised.
I'll give it a second just to see if anybody else is trying to sign on.
We have another hand raised. Okay. G. Webb, please unmute your mic.
Good evening. My name is Janelle Webb. I'm at 1701 McLaurin Lane at Fuquay-Varina. I don't have a lot to say, but I do want to reiterate and raise my voice in unison with some of the other things that have been said. The first thing is, I do believe also that discussion needs to take place as opposed to the listen, talk. I don't believe that we can make progress that way. I believe that this is a very, very opportune time that a bridge can be built indeed. We've all had a lot of words in the past, but indeed, I believe that a bridge can be built from what has occurred with the Ziegler family. I believe that there is a way to do that, even if you change the rules of this particular committee or create a different committee where it can happen. And maybe it's not so much with these individuals. Maybe we need to bring other individuals and the leadership in the town together in order for this to happen. But again, I'm really just raising my voice to say that I support, I advocate that discussion really needs to take place that involves the community. And again, this is a time, it's not something that we want it to happen, not something, but this is a time to build bridges within our community. And that's really all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anybody else that wishes to speak?
I see no hands raised at this time.
Okay. Okay, well.
We now have a hand raised. It's a phone call, phone number ending in 8964. Please unmute your phone.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you may want to remind them to state their name and address for the public.
Oh, yes.
record.
I apologize for not reminding the people, some of the people who've already spoken, but if you'll please state your name and your address.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Good evening. Yes, I can hear you.
Great, thank you. My name is Kristen Pope. I live at 108 Brookside Drive. I am the mother of the other child who was handcuffed at the Malcolm Ziegler home. We are in support of the Ziegler family. We are in support of our community members who are looking for change, asking for change, wanting a seat at the table to engage in dialogue, to improve this community. I am a lifelong member of this community. I have seen this community grow and change and evolve into the town that it is today. And while there are wonderful, wonderful things about this community that we live in, we have to acknowledge and recognize that there are areas of weakness. And it's not for us to look bad or to feel like we need to hide or cover it up, but really to put ourselves out there so that we can be truly the great community that we all want and claim that we live in. And so I hope that this commenting will turn into a conversation and that we will all grow and become a really wonderful town. And that's all I need to say.
Thank you very much for your comments. Scott, do we have anybody else that wishes to speak?
No, sir.
Yeah, I noticed you may just want to remind, or let me remind folks about the process for raising hands. Just
yes,
sure.
if you would. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Mann.
so if you're attending via the Zoom application, you can hit the raise hand button in the Zoom application. If you're attending the meeting via telephone, *9 allows you to raise your hand and for our IT host to be able to see that you would wish to speak, and then we could call on you.
Okay, we now have a another phone caller. Phone number ending in 6685. Please unmute your mic or your phone.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome, and you may proceed.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Andy Pope. I live at 1744 Greenbrier Drive. I'm actually moving to another home in Fuquay. Been here a couple of years. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak in this committee coming together. I know this is always a rough patch to try and work through on many things. My background was in the community after moving in. I served in the Army over 10 years. My wife is still currently serving. We are a blended family that is interracial. We have chosen to live in Fuquay, and I was always feeling that it is a beautiful and wonderful community as is. But knowing that speed bumps, issues, friction points, points of concern get addressed. And so as you are all in mood of reception, just to kind of mention food for thought with everything, in that I bring this from my educational background, having worked a lot with law enforcement training programs, to even getting research published on the topic, that this issue, this problem set of trying to work through, Fuquay is not the first community to try and tackle that. And one thing I've seen in other communities, other law enforcement agencies, is to expand out and to look to neighboring agencies, even directly next to the community or even further away, to see how they go about policies and procedures, building bridges, renewing bridges, to then apply to the community itself directly. And I say all that with faith of that being a possible thing with the Fuquay-Varina Police Department, in that there's been times where I have questioned why they've made the decisions they have, why they've gone about matters in the certain particular way they have. And one benefit, and I haven't seen this in all law enforcement communities that I've lived in, is the leadership does take the time to talk to those people of the community and answer those questions. So I mentioned that suggestion of researching into other law enforcement agencies, other communities and policies and procedures on this topic, and that it will hopefully be received in open arms. I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Who do we have next?
Right now, there are no hands raised.
Okay, well, I wanted to thank all of our speakers tonight who have joined us from the community and share their comments with us and their thoughts tonight. I appreciate every one of you, and I appreciate you taking the time to join our meeting virtually to be able to share these thoughts with us. And at this time, I would like to, as our next matter of business, to open this up for committee member discussion. And I will start with Commissioner Harris, followed by Commissioner Gardner, and then I'll make remarks at the end.
I'll yield to Commissioner Gardner first.
Okay. So this will be an opportunity to make any comments about what you've heard tonight or anything else that you would like to make a comment about.
Well, first, I would like to thank each and every person who spoke tonight. It hasn't been because we didn't want to hear you that we haven't had this opportunity before. It's that we were trying to set up how this committee would operate and try to make sure we were proceeding in a proper way that will serve the issues and the community the best we could. So we thank you so much for your time tonight. And I am really grateful to hear so many of these things, and especially hearing different ones of you say that you were in favor of certain things that had been said before, because we know then that's at least two people who think that's a good idea. But I am sorry for the trust that has been lost over this, and I do think we have work to do, and your input tonight has been invaluable. Thank you.
Commissioner Harris?
I think what we've heard tonight has come from the heart of the citizenry here in Fuquay-Varina who have had a different experience when it comes to feeling a part of the community, as well as their experiences with law enforcement. One of the things that I think is so important that I heard tonight constantly is the fact of wanting to have transparency as well as wanting to have discussions and to have an opportunity to have the foundation for continued relationships to start. And I heard that clearly. It's unfortunate that the events that have occurred over the past couple of months have led to this point, but I think, as one speaker said, this is a great opportunity for us as a community to have a different conversation about how we can improve in our relationships with one another, as well as how we see each other as residents of the same town and community. It's so important for us, I believe, to hear from citizens from every walk of life who've come from different areas, and yet they have similar concerns about how we as leaders can do a better job, as well as how we can continue to move in a direction where people feel safe. That theme has been repeated tonight as well. One of the things that I think we must continue to do is to enable participation, even if it starts in a forum like this, but also to change and to put it in a more human form where we can have direct interaction. I don't know if that's directly related to the current environment with COVID-19 or what, but I think as we continue to move forward as a community and a committee, that we have to have some way where we can have an opportunity to have people at the table at some point. I think the other thing is that we have to consider the local neighborhood level conversation of individuals who have had experiences and interactions with the police department, and whose interactions, although may have been positive, that there is an indication from what I gather tonight, a desire for even a greater improvement from the police department. My heart goes out to Ms. Ziegler and her family for what they have had to contend with, the emotional trauma expressed by one of the speakers in regards to Malcolm Ziegler, a 14-year-old, and how that experience will be imprinted upon his mind and his life forever. I think it's so important for us, in response to what we've heard tonight, to identify some key things that we must address. And I think the key thing that speaks out is the aspect of trust. We have got to work to restore and to repair the trust of law enforcement in this community. And I think it begins with each of us in regards to the lens of which we see, how we see each other. I'm sure we have great law enforcement officers here in this community. And we know, as dedicated leaders, we have a vision for this community as well. At some level, we have to rekindle this sense of trust that we all have a common desire, which is to feel safe, and everyone deserves to feel safe. And if it means increasing that sense of safety, I think that that's what we need to work toward. So I commend each person who spoke tonight. I believe each person spoke from their heart in regards to their sense of what it means to have a voice in this community. And I'm so grateful for every person who spoke. I think now the response for us from a committee perspective is to listen to what we've heard tonight, and perhaps we may even need to change our approach as we continue to have these meetings. Certainly, it was expressed that we continue to have meetings as far as the Public Safety Committee, but I think we may want to expand our reach and how we allow the citizens to further engage in this process of overall improvement in our police department, as well as in strengthening our relationships with the community, so that the community will continue to feel that it has a voice, that it has a recognition, and that it has a sense of belonging. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm grateful for this opportunity to hear from the citizens tonight. I think it's a call for us as a committee and as elected leaders here in Fuquay-Varina to look at and to do some things differently to repair the strain in relationships that have occurred. And I look forward to our continuing to open up and give citizens an opportunity to continue to express themselves, and that we would encourage citizen participation as we move forward, and that we would look at how we can continue to engage the community so that we won't lose this momentum that we have thus far. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris. Was there anything else you wanted to state, Commissioner Gardner?
Actually, yes. We had mentioned briefly last time that we would like for everyone to be well informed as to how you can voice your comments in between these meetings when we're open to public comment, and that is that you can email any of us. Our email addresses are on the town website. Also, there's been talk about transparency, and I think that's really important. It's something that I had in my platform when I first ran for town board 5 years ago, and from time to time, we've made strides in that area, but you may not be aware of them. The minutes for these meetings are available on our town website. The agendas are available on our town website. There is a button on the town website for agendas and minutes, and that's where you can find them. You can even access recordings of these meetings. So that may not be as much transparency as we need to put forward, but just know that that is available to you on the town website. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Gardner. And I too wanted to reiterate and thank everyone who took the time to speak tonight and speak from your heart and share your comments with us, and that you took the time out of your day to come and do that and express your sentiment and how you feel and or what you've experienced. I took a lot of notes tonight on each speaker and what they've shared with the committee, and we'll certainly go back and review those notes. And Mr. Manager, will the comments be in the minutes, or do comments not go into the minutes?
Well, so again, minutes are not verbatim. They are a synopsis of what occurred at the meeting. So we will address everyone's comments in general terms, and then of course if somebody wanted to go back and see exactly verbatim what was said, that can be found in the recordings of the meetings, which are available on the town's YouTube channel.
Thank you. And so, and that's important to share too, if you missed anything or you missed anything from prior meetings, that you can go back and watch these meetings and be able to hear what has happened. But certainly I wasn't able to get everything written down, but that would give me an opportunity to go back and get anything that I may have missed to review.
Would that include the presentation from the League of Municipalities?
The presentation is a part of last meeting's video, and so anyone can go back and see that presentation in its full form and factor. But the presentation itself and the comments that were made by both Mr. Laird and Mr. Anderson.
And thank you. And as has already been stated, by our committee members, I too join in believing that transparency is of the utmost importance. That's something that I've always believed in, transparency, and feel like that the public definitely should know how and where they can find these things, and in terms of as Commissioner Gardner stated, the agenda and minutes and past meetings. And if they're wondering what our mission statement is, that's all accessible. I too wish we were at a point where we could conduct these meetings in person, as I feel like when these types of meetings are done in person, you can look at people and you can look them in the eye, and even if you're not at that point having a discussion, it's definitely I can understand more challenging because of the pandemic that we're doing it via Zoom or Facebook, and so you can't necessarily be with us in the room and here, but we've tried to the best that we can do in this pandemic to create that, and so I do wish that we could be together in person, but I have taken, as I said, a lot of notes, and we'll be reviewing those notes of the comments that were made, and then these are things that our committee can discuss as we move forward, these suggestions. But if you did not have the opportunity to speak tonight, or you were not able to speak tonight, of course, as Commissioner Gardner stated, you can email us, and we would gladly welcome your comments in addition to what has been stated tonight. And the committee...
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
Based on what we heard tonight, I think it would be important for transparency to have a portion of our future meetings where we would have the opportunity for the public to comment, because I value the wisdom of the public when it comes to what we as a committee can do to continue to address some of the concerns that were raised tonight. And not only, I think, could we provide the public the opportunity to email us, the committee, but perhaps a portion of our meeting, we still can allow for continued public input. That way, as we move along in our developing our strategy, we can have input and feedback from the public in regards to what we're doing, and we won't steer in the wrong direction that won't really address the concern. So I would ask the committee to consider that we'd have a portion of our future meetings for public comment.
And Commissioner Harris, would you want to have those comments at the end of the meeting, or would you want to have them at the beginning? How would you want to format them?
It might depend on whether or not we have a presentation scheduled, because we do have at least one other presentation, I think, planned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think my thought is similar to the pattern we have for the full board meetings, that during the full board meetings, we do allow for public comment. Okay. And it can be relative to the same format until we can move in a direction where we can have this dialogue or discussion. I see having to have the public the opportunity for continued expression is the beginning of developing this dialogue. And even if we have the first 5 or 10 minutes open for public feedback, I think that will be beneficial to the public in regards to our wanting to have a commitment to being transparent.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris.
Yes,
Commissioner Gardner,
that's sort of my idea, Commissioner Gardner.
I was just thinking, in light of what we heard from several tonight, there was another in the beginning when we were discussing, what we thought these, what kind of things we would do at some of these meetings, and what kind of format we ought to have and everything. One of the things we did talk about was getting information on what other communities are doing in light of some of these issues, and I think that was mentioned several times tonight. I think that somewhere as we move forward, I would like for us to have some some kind of report on what other communities are doing.
Okay. Good.
And is that something you would like to see as well?
Yes,
Commissioner Harris?
that, I think that's
Okay.
was expressed tonight as well.
Yeah, and that was something that I had in mind as well when this committee began, was to be able to look at that as well. So that, I think that's a good thing. And then your thoughts, Commissioner Gardner, on having public comment either at the beginning of the meeting or if there's a speaker possibly at the end of the meeting?
It probably would be better at the beginning, just because we could get that word out. People might not know when the end of the meeting is going to be.
Okay,
You
that's
know,
true.
So I would say if we can do that.
Okay.
But I do want us to be respectful and mindful of any presenter we have as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So then, what I'm hearing, excuse me, what I'm hearing is that we would like to include public comment at the beginning of our meetings to continue to hear from the public, and then
I hate to limit that, but if we have someone who's come here from somewhere else that's, speaking, we, we can't go an hour with public comment.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what we need to do here, but just being mindful of and respectful of everyone concerned.
Well, and then, too, sometimes people don't sign on right away, and so they may not be able to have the opportunity to speak at 7 because they have something else going on, but they can speak a little bit further into the meeting. And so maybe sometimes giving a few minutes before, so that everybody can sign on. And I know because I know we're doing this virtually.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives people, like tonight, if we had gone with comments in the first, few minutes, we would have had 1 or 2 or 3, but that's why I tried to be intentionally, I guess, slow and stalling, so that we would give everybody that wanted the opportunity, who wished to speak, the opportunity to speak. Because I understand, if you said, okay, we're having a meeting at 7 o'clock, everybody be here at 7 o'clock, then people would come into the building and sign up, or they may probably come earlier, sign up that they wish to speak, and then come forward to the podium. But we're dealing with technology and we're doing this virtually, so I was trying to just make sure that everybody got an opportunity to speak. But I also noticed that sometimes maybe people weren't available right at the very beginning of the meeting, and so just finding the appropriate time where we can get the maximum amount of participation is just something to think about. So that, but also, like you said, Commissioner Gardner, being respectful to our speaker that we have and their time. So,
well, we had talked about having another meeting fully devoted to public comment like
Right.
we did tonight.
Right.
So maybe we could have public comment period at the beginning of every meeting, but when we have, but knowing that we could have a whole meeting of public comment soon after that, maybe it wouldn't be an hour or whatever. I don't know. I'm just however we have to do it to get everything worked in.
Okay.
But I think the public comment is really important, and I hope everyone will remember that they have a way to do that in between these meetings too.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, then, and then in addition to the public comment, a takeaway from this meeting would be to do a study of other or to hear about a study of other communities.
I think that was mentioned, yes.
That was mentioned from, I believe, probably somewhere in my notes, and then from Commissioner Gardner.
We had talked about it before, but it came up several times tonight.
And I know that was something that I was looking to see as well, so that would be wonderful to have that, and that has come up tonight. And I know, just looking through my notes, I know I saw repeatedly that the public wanted to have more of an opportunity to comment, obviously, than just the one time. I know that, in our first meeting, we were trying to, as was stated, we had a mission statement that was defined. We kind of set up how we were going to conduct this committee, And then that was the first meeting. It was more of a procedural meeting. And then the second meeting, we had a presenter. At the second meeting, it had started later in the evening, because that was a meeting that we had started at
7:30.
7:30, yeah.
Because I wanted to make sure that Commissioner Harris went to his aunt's 97th, 8th, 96th birthday, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but we had our meeting, just started a little bit later, and we had our presenter, and so now we've basically up to this time had one presenter and had an opportunity to begin hearing from the public, and can go ahead and follow this course for future meetings with public comment at the beginning of our meeting and before we get into our agenda for that particular meeting. And again, for the public, we meet every 2 weeks, so we meet every other Thursday we started one time at 7:30, but we typically meet at 7 o'clock. And if we were to meet at any other time, we would definitely inform the public. I'm just looking over some more of my notes here. Okay. Was there anything else anybody wanted to share regarding anything you heard tonight or anything about our future meetings?
I took some notes in regards to some recommendations, and and I think you as well, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I just want to identify some of the recommendations, because I believe key to what we do as far as any future planning or strategies to strengthen relationship in the community, citizen participation and feedback is going to be crucial and is crucial. And some of the recommendations that I recall, and there were numerous recommendations, but one was mirror the Apex Police Department, and they are here in Wake County. They are a municipality who has moved forward with doing a cultural assessment of their police department. And I mean, I think that that's a good step for us. It's a local community who has taken the challenge of doing a cultural assessment, because part of the theme that I heard tonight as well was in regards to the plight of black and brown people here in Fuquay-Varina, and some of the terms were even stronger when it comes to the way people view Fuquay-Varina, as racist. And some of the dialogue that I heard tonight referenced the people of black and brown descent felt somewhat disenfranchised when it comes to feeling a part of making decisions. And the recommendation as far as a cultural assessment highlights another community, the Apex community, who had taken the risk and the challenge of doing something that brings to light and brought to light the strengths as well as the weaknesses of their police department, their law enforcement community. So I would like for us at some point to have some discussion about either how we would look at that, whether we want to entertain that as a strategy, or whether we want to get someone from the Apex Police Department or the consultant who conducted the cultural assessment to come and to talk with us about how that happened, or what kind of recommendation that we can have in regards to that. That would be what I think a good place to start, since it was one of the recommendations coming from the citizens tonight.
Perhaps that could be part of, I think there are other municipalities in the area who have had cultural assessments done.
Okay.
So perhaps that would be just, I defer to our town manager, that would just be part of investigating what some of our neighboring communities have done, correct?
I mean, sure, as part of the research and preparing some sort of report for the town board, the public safety committee at this point, we could try to identify which communities have and have not done that.
And maybe after we get that report, then we can determine if we want a presentation from one or more of those entities.
Mhm.
You think?
I think that's a good step. Mm-hmm. Do we need to make a motion for that, or that's just, okay, Mr. Chairman, that we?
What would be the motion
I don't know.
in terms of how would you want to word the motion?
If we're in agreement, we don't necessarily need a motion to do it.
That's right.
But, do we?
You do not if you're in agreement that you want
agreement.
research done and a report back to the committee.
Okay.
All right, good.
Yes, I think we all have talked about, looking at what other municipalities have done and then getting a report back. So that's something we all have talked about and shared about. And like Commissioner Harris said, there were a number of things, some I missed trying to write, but a number of ideas that were given to us tonight from the public.
Yeah, I'd already made myself a note to
and,
check the recording because
yes.
I couldn't get them all written down.
Yes, a number of ideas, and not everybody said the same thing. There were different ideas that were shared with us, and then as well as concerns, and in reviewing my notes, just an overall theme of wanting transparency, open-mindedness, proactive approach, trust in our community, respect, bridges being built. And so these were some of the different themes that were brought up throughout these presentations from the public. And so as well as very specific ideas about what to do, as well as we've received emails regarded to. And I wanted to state, I was just listing that as another way that if you can't come to meetings at night or you're not available at night, to be able to participate, that you're not just boxed into speaking at one of these meetings, but you can also email us as well to be able to communicate with us. So I wanted to let the public know that if this time wasn't convenient to be able to come to meetings, to participate in an effort to get as much participation as possible. But I wanted to thank the public again for joining us tonight. We had a lot of participation. Wanted to thank our board members, our committee members, for your remarks, and we will convene again 2 weeks from tonight at 7 p.m. and again invite the public to join us on Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, to be able to participate in our meetings. And with that said, is there anything else that anybody would like to state before we adjourn? If there are no other comments, then do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much, everyone. We are adjourned.